In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at warmer times ahead, although models still continue to show some signs of colder air making a comeback towards the later point of the month. We will discuss that later on. It does still look to be quite dry overall, and I wish I had a different story to tell you guys today, but I really don't. We're going to be breaking it down. There is a major coastal system that is brewing, but this is going to be pretty exclusive for North Carolina and Virginia, so that isn't going to benefit up and down the East Coast, just some pretty specific locations, unfortunately. Let's discuss all of these things, looking at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook here. This goes for the 21st through the 25th. You could tell that they are leaning towards an overall warmer pattern. Especially for these areas here along the Rockies and the plains. For a colder pattern in the east, you would like to see this much more exclusively for the west, and that would give room for a trough to move into the east. We just don't have that right now by any means. We had that earlier on in the month. That has gone ahead and taken a different shape here throughout the mid portion of September. Let's take a look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, which is for the 23rd through the 29th, and it really remains largely the same from the National Weather Service. We're going to show you model guidance that definitely disagrees, but there is for sure a chance of this happening as we transition from September into October. We're going to have to see what the pattern would bring in that case. Let's take a look at the past 15 days of temperatures. So this is how the first half of your September has gone. Largely warmer than normal across much of the west of North America, and largely, and in some ways, big time below normal temperatures have taken hold throughout a lot of the earlier portion of the month. We've had a 5 to 7 day period now that has gone ahead and brought these temperatures closer to normal. They're still pretty far below normal for a 15-day period, but it was much cooler to start the month off than it has been the last few days as we've reached the midpoint of the month, as I mentioned earlier on. First off, let's take a look at some of that storminess, and we can see that coastal system right here near North Carolina and Virginia, almost similar to a tropical system with very heavy rain and really windy conditions in here. It just isn't a tropical system. It's not very warm in these areas. It hasn't been for a while. And that largely plays into things as far as this being a non-tropical system. We do have a low over south central Canada, and this is bringing some precipitation along areas of the Midwest and the plains, as well as areas up in Canada, of course. We do see some precipitation around for northern Rockies here, but pretty inactive still. As we move this towards tomorrow, again, Virginia, North Carolina, and some areas of the Mid-Atlantic like Maryland, D.C., Delaware, New Jersey are seeing precipitation from this one. They're just not seeing the flooding rainfall that North Carolina and Virginia are expecting to see. As we keep going, by Wednesday afternoon on the 17th, we see a lot of the northern plains and upper Midwest dealing with these showery, overall rainy conditions. The Mid-Atlantic is very similar to Tuesday, so this just kind of continues here. And by Thursday, we can see that this one just dodges a lot of the Northeast and more interior Mid-Atlantic overall. And they end up still remaining dry multiple days from now. The plains, however, have seen days of rainfall, and Florida to be expected, seeing their daily dose of thunderstorms. And these areas that saw rainfall, it's finally coming to an end by the Thursday timeframe, the 18th there. Friday the 19th here, we continue to see this column of showers across the Midwest and deeper south. Saturday the 20th here as well. Minnesota southward into Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, the deep south here overall, like Mississippi and Alabama. That continues to really be an impact there. Sunday on the 21st, we start to get more coastal activity for the southeast. Again, the northeast remains quite dry. Midwest and plains still seeing some activity. And now we kind of have this Ohio Valley area and southward into Kentucky and Tennessee seeing some rainfall as well. Monday on the 22nd, again, a lot of activity there offshore and a little bit onshore of the southeast. Continuing to see thunderstorms and showers across parts of the plains and Midwest. Pretty much the same thing every day. Tuesday the 23rd does get interesting. We do have a low here between the Hudson Bay and Great Lakes. We'll have to see how this plays out. This is the 23rd. And you guys have heard me say this, but when we have lows moving through this area, typically it cools things down here in the east. And we can see that this thing clearly has a cold front. The jet stream is ridging over the west and troughing a little bit into the east. So that kind of sign that brings on remains true in this case. Wednesday the 24th, we see some of this precipitation getting to the northeast, which is really, really good news. Cooler air is diving into the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, also a lot of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast by this point. So later on, as we reach mid next week, it looks like we could potentially be cooling things down again for the ending of the month. Thursday is quite dry, the 25th here, not a lot to discuss. Friday the 26th, the Northwest and South Texas has some precipitation, but again, really limited areas of the United States. Saturday the 27th is largely the same. Something interesting starts to take place, though, by Sunday the 28th. We have another major low between the Hudson Bay and Great Lakes here. We have a building ridge out west, so some warmer air trying to build something out there. So your jet stream is troughing with that cold front underneath that low. Now, as we continue this on towards Monday on the 29th, we can see a really interesting pattern takes hold here with a ridge that is successfully built now along the west and a trough that is pouring cooler air into the central and eastern states now by that very late portion of the model run. It's completed by Tuesday the 30th, which is literally the end of this model run, about 15 days out. Definitely take this with a grain of salt. This is extremely far out, but a promising sign that we're not going to be stuck in this warm pattern permanently, at least. Looking at the total precipitation, it's pretty clear that these areas here in the southern mid-Atlantic do phenomenal. They see a lot of rainfall. And also the plains and a lot of the Midwest do really good here, as well as the Northwest. But for a lot of areas in the Rockies, Southwest, it's pretty marginal. Areas in the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and Deep South, really, really below average as far as precipitation. And then also your Northeast area is not quite up to average. So as we look at the total kind of anomaly here of everything, we do see some above average precipitation, especially throughout the Northwest. We do see some for the plains and Midwest. A lot of the East looking below average, besides North Carolina and Virginia here, as well as parts of Maine actually as well are a little bit above average. But much of the Northeast, much of the Mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Southeast, and deeper South and Gulf Coast, all below normal, still looking forward through the end of September. So that is obviously not very good news for some of these drought-stricken areas. Temperatures, as far as the European model, again, a warmer pattern is going to unfold, especially after this low is said and done. The eastern seaboard is still relatively cool for some areas. Even as we look towards late this week, we see some of those blues kind of holding on. The Northeast gets a backdoor cold front over the course of the weekend, seeing much below normal temperatures here for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then as we head towards early to mid next week, this is Tuesday the 23rd, we see coast-to-coast warmth. As you can see, from the west coast to the east coast, there is really only a few areas with some below normal temperatures. That is the pattern we kind of find ourselves in. And then finally, by the end of the month, we get this warm up in the west starting to take place and some cooler air moving into the east. Although, looking at this versus what we were seeing as far as how large that trough was, isn't the most impressive cool down in the world. This is slightly below normal temperatures. Still below normal, but this wouldn't be some massive cool down like we saw earlier on in September. Of course, there's plenty of time for this to change. It could get, cooler, or it could look warmer. So we're going to have to really wait and see. As of now, showing a milder cool down for the late portion of the month. The GFS model, again, we're going to see this cooler air hang on, backdoor cold front this weekend for the Northeast, and then we get that warmth overall. We do get a bit of a cold front around that date that I mentioned for the potential for the first one, the 23rd, 24th, 25th. We do see some blues in the east. Then after that point, similar to the European model, we do get a larger cooldown into the central and eastern states. Although by the time it arrives, it's quite mild and not very widespread. So both models kind of in agreement, at least with that more minor cooldown for the end of the month. The GFS model does show a healthier cooldown than the European model does, closer to the 23rd, 24th, 25th before the one they both agree on. So interesting. Definitely not the coldest look in the world. I do suspect that this is going to be relatively short-lived, probably just a couple of weeks at most. We're going to have to kind of wait and see what is going to be occurring after all of this is said and done. So with all that being said, be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.